So if everybody would like to stand up, join us for the opening prayer. It'll be with Councilman Lopez, and then I'll say the Pledge of Allegiance.
He said the prayer first, we're going to do it.
Allegiance first. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, we come to before you and ask you for wisdom for the decisions we're going to undertake here. I'm thankful for the staff and the citizens of our community, Father. But most of all, at this time, what weighs on my heart is Chief Brugman's son. I pray for him, his healing, that he is able to return to work and life and has no after problems with the incident that took place. I ask everyone to keep him in their prayers, and I ask this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay. Then we'll move on to item number 5. Any comments from the citizens on agenda items? Okay, then we'll move on to item 6. Any comments on non-agenda items for the citizens? We have 2, Bart Stoffler and Martin Valdez. Who would like to go first? Okay, please. Go ahead and up to the microphone, state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
Hello, everybody. My name's Bart Stauffer. My address is at 225 East 20th Street. The issue that I have is there's an electrical issue at Sunrise Village where there's an underground conductor that's failed and it's not allowing proper electricity to 4 houses that are there. Okay. Meeting with the city, they said that this is Sunrise Village's responsibility, this underground conductor. We don't believe so because this conductor was purchased from Graham County Electric by the city of Safford when they did their territory service agreement back in 2015. As a matter of fact, they purchased 85,000 feet of underground electric wire. So we met with the city manager, trying to go through this chain of command properly, right? We met with the city manager, asked him exactly how is this Sunrise Village's responsibility when you guys purchased this item from Graham County Electric. See, before Graham County Electric took care of everything up to the meter, after the meter to the houses was then Sunrise responsibility. Now the city of Safford is saying that no, they're only responsible to the transformer, and from the transformer to the meter is not their responsibility, it's Sunrise Village's responsibility. So we met with the city manager, asked him to explain this to us. The response we got was, well, we'll have our lawyers contact you because we're not sure. So we're waiting for the lawyers to contact us, and then we get an email from the city manager saying that there's a electrical situation there, it's unsafe, and they're going to rectify the situation. A couple days later, there's a letter sent to Sunrise Village from the building inspector saying that we have 30 days to repair this situation before there's fines and other litigations that'll be followed up. So Sunrise Village is just really wondering exactly how did this become their situation? How did they become legally responsible for this when, in fact, the city purchased this from Graham County Electric? It's all set out in the docket with the Corporation Commission when all this stuff went through. And as a matter of fact, Section 9, Paragraph 3 of this docket talks about facilities being transferred and purchases and stuff like that. In this docket, it says, whenever any facilities and respective associated real property interests are transferred and conveyed, which means when the city of Safford bought that, the purchasing party shall be solely responsible for providing electric service to the customers connected to such transferred facilities, and all right, title, interest, operation, maintenance, and disposition of such transferred facilities and associated real properties. So it states out the city bought it, they owned it, but we're just wondering if there's any way we can get some kind of clarification from somebody sometime to let us know exactly when and how we became responsible for this. I appreciate your guys' time. Thank you very much.
Just to let everybody know that, we can't comment on, respond on non-agenda items. Then we'll move on to number 7. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we have another one. Martin? Got that?
Well, thank you, Vice Mayor and all City Council members for your time today. My name is Martin Valdez. I'm the Operations and Area Manager for the Nagra family. First, I wanted to say that it's been a pleasure to work for the Nagras in such a great community like the city of Safford. In the last couple of years, we have had the opportunity to acquire multiple locations in Safford and Graham County. We have also invested in these locations with remodels and full renovations. We have been developing and training a wonderful staff that we consider our family now. We're a very big on family community and want to be involved in the community as much as we can be. We're also very excited to be a part of the Wine Festival this year with the wine tasting preview and dinner starting at our hotel. Thanks to Vance and the Chamber of Commerce, along with the wineries, for allowing us to participate. We're hoping it will be a great event and a great start to the festival as we continue to grow the city of Safford together. We're going to be hosting the Friday before the weekend of the Wine Festival, and we're going to have the wine tasting, and we're going to have a dinner there, and we wanted to invite everybody that can come over to kind of see what we've done with the hotel, and we've done pretty good renovations there, and we're happy for everybody to come in and see and have a good time, and like I said, we're just here to keep the community growing, want to be part of the community and do our part, and we just wanted to come over and invite everybody, and thanks for you guys' time and participation in this event. Thank you for the Chamber of Commerce. And that's all I really had for today. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you and welcome. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and move on to item 7, number 1. Everybody have a chance to read the minutes of March 8th, 20.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes, Vice Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of March 8th, 2021. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 2 is a special event liquor license. It's, Pam, would you like to come on up?
Good evening, council. This is to recommend and approve the Department of Liquor Licenses and Controls for the following fair and festival license applications. These liquor license applications are for the Safford Spring Festival sponsored by the Graham County Chamber of Commerce. They all have 2 applications each. One is for the Safford Spring Festival's preview night on Friday, April 23rd, that takes place at the Best Western Plus. And the second one is for the Safford Spring Festival that takes place on Saturday, April 24th to the Sunday, April 25th at Safford City Hall. So we have the following applications. The Chamber Special Event the Chamber Special Event License Application for the Safford Spring Festival with the map attached. And those should be in your packet, and as well as the preview night. And the following winery applications are as follows. The Copper Horse Vineyard, the Coronado Vineyards Incorporated, Elgin Distillery, Elgin Winery, Laramida Cellars LLC, Strive Vineyards, and Sonoida Vineyards. Do you have any other questions? Vance Bryce is here from the chamber that can answer any of the questions regarding any of these applications.
Go ahead.
And this is a blanket application you made for everybody, because you read it all together.
Yes.
I thought in the past they all ended up having to do them separately and stuff. Something changed, or that's the way it always has been?
Councilman Lopez, so what it was is, there's quite a few of them, of the applications, so rather than just diluting it with every application, we just inserted the diagram for the entire program, for the weekend for both locations, and then she just named off every Fair Festival license that is to be approved tonight, which we have here for final and approval tonight, for if you guys approve the liquor licenses.
Yeah, I just didn't think we had to do it 6 times or 7 times or whatever. And,
Yeah, so this is just a blanket one for all liquor licenses to be
All of them this
approved
time.
for for the 2 nights. So there's 2 separate events. There's one on the 23rd that is gonna be at the Best Western, yes, and then the 24th and 25th out in front of City Hall lawn.
the Vance, the Best Western one, this is kind of a new twist on it too, so it's, when I saw that, I thought that was gonna be pretty nice. I'm glad the gentleman came and spoke to us and introduced themselves to see it take place, so hopefully it starts it off for you.
They're going to be huge community partners, and we're excited to have them in the community. They're great. Good sponsors.
Thank you, sir.
Do anybody else, any other questions or comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion, Vice Mayor.
Okay, and that's for the liquor license. We'll make sure that, we have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Then we'll
Thank
move-
you.
Thank you. Then we'll move on to item number 8. It's ordinance 021-001. Susan, please.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, members of City Council. You may recall this item was discussed on a number of occasions with council and some workshops. And finally, we had some direction from council to move forward and bring back this second reading. We had one second reading, and then the council decided to move it to a workshop. It was discussed at a work session on February 12th, 2021, and during that discussion, it was suggested that if a developer wanted to reduce the rear setback, we're talking about setbacks and lot coverage here, that request could be made through the plan unit development subdivision process similar to Copper Canyon, as opposed to reducing the setback, the rear setbacks for all properties that are existing already within the city limits. The Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation to not reduce the rear setback was also discussed. Additionally, there was discussion of increasing the allowed lot coverage and how that increase would impact stormwater runoff on existing properties and also the design of stormwater retention on new subdivisions. The consensus of the council was to not reduce the rear setback from 20 feet to 15 feet, and direction was given to have the Planning and Community Development Director and the City Works, Public Works Director and City Engineer meet to discuss the lot coverage requirements. And as part of your ordinance, you have those recommendations between myself and both Lance. And Lance is here also to answer any questions the council may have. So again, this is a second reading. It's for the council to vote on the ordinance and then have the second reading. So their changes basically are for size and setback regulations, that in the R10 single-family residential zoning district, that the lot coverage be increased from 35% to 40%. This allows a greater portion of the lot to be covered by structures. For the R1 single-family residential zoning district, the lot coverage will be increased from 40% to 50%. The R2A duplex residential zoning district is already at 50%, so there's no need to look at increasing that. The R2 multiple family residential zoning district, the maximum lot coverage is currently at 50%, so there's no need to increase that. The AR agricultural residential zoning district, the maximum lot coverage currently is at 40%, and that was left as is. The CMH conventional and manufactured home zoning district is increased from 40% to 50%, and the manufactured home zoning district is increased from 40% to 50%. And I'll be happy to answer any questions should you have any on this particular item.
Anybody have any questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 021-001. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tammy, please.
Ordinance number O21-001, an ordinance of the City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, amending Title 17 zoning, Chapter 17.68, size and setback regulations, Section 17.68.010, summary of zoning regulations relating to maximum lot coverage.
Thank you. Then we'll move on to ordinance number 021-002. Again, Susan?
Vice Mayor and Council, so this is an item that was discussed on a number of occasions with the City Council regarding the age of manufactured homes. It was brought to the council for a second reading, and it was decided to bring it back to council for a workshop. And on January 25th, 2021, City Council had a workshop where they discussed this item. The Planning and Zoning Commission had recommended to do an age limitation of 35 years for new manufactured homes, or I should say, existing used manufactured homes being brought into the city limits, and for manufactured homes to be moved from one location to the other. The council directed staff to change that to 25 years. Those years will run as time moves on, so we're not just saying a certain age manufactured home, but just that any manufactured home, no manufactured home can be moved into the city limits or moved from one site in the city to another site in the city limits that is older than 25 years. I also added some language that was requested as far as the whereas, and so I have, that's part of the ordinance itself, the body of the ordinance. And whereas this City Council desires to amend Title 17 zoning to restrict the age of manufactured homes allowed to be moved into the City of Safford, again, or allowed to be moved from one location to another location, whereas the City Council finds that manufactured homes tend to depreciate in value over time and site-built homes tend to appreciate in value over time, and whereas the City Council finds that manufactured homes which depreciate in value over time tend to have a negative impact on property values and other properties located nearby. Also, whereas the City Council finds that older manufactured homes are physically difficult to relocate, which can compromise the structural integrity of the manufactured home and the health and safety of the occupants of the relocated manufactured home. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Councilman?
I do.
No? If we don't have any questions or any more discussion, have a motion. Ordinance 021-002.
We approve ordinance 021-002.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 021-002. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tammy, again.
Ordinance number O21-002, an ordinance of the City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, amending Title 17 zoning, Chapter 17.24, zoning districts designated, Section 17.40.020, AR Agricultural Residential District use requirements, permitted uses, and Section 17.44.030, C-MH Conventional Manufactured Home District use requirements relating to the age of manufactured homes.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to just make one comment. That mobile home or manufactured home, whatever you want to call it, on 8th Street, that hasn't been finished. I don't know if it looks worse or better since they put it there. That's just a statement. Then we'll move on to item number 9. It's a school resource officer.
Council, What this is, we're asking that the council enter or continue, I should say, or extend a intergovernmental agreement with the Safford Unified School District for a school resource officer. We've had a ongoing commitment with them for the last few years. It's been very beneficial for the city of Safford, the citizens, the students, and the administration there at the school. They're very appreciative and have requested that we continue that. This is to ask that it be extended for another 3 years. We've changed a few things in the contract to make things more clear, things we've learned over the last couple of years on cleaning some of this up with the agreement. This position has helped with the officers teaching in the classes, forensic type courses. They're doing counseling with the students. They're building rapport with the students at a younger age, helping the students to understand and know who law enforcement is and what the purpose is and how they can help them and be beneficial to them. So we feel this is a good relationship and positive opportunity for the schools and also for the city of Safford. Any questions?
Chief Orr, who do we have in the position right now? I know we've had Officer Abizo retire, and
Yes, currently Officer Abizo retired. We are rotating through. We have 2 or 3 that rotate through 1 or 2 days a week to make sure we still have somebody going in and out on campus. But we're working with the school. They're very pleased with what we're doing because we are shorthanded trying to get people through the academy. We currently have someone in the academy and trying to hire another officers. We're down 2 currently. And so we're just rotating them through. They're pleased with that. They're happy with how that's working out, but we're looking to make another permanent by next school year.
next week, okay. And will this next individual, will he be going to SRO school, or?
Yes, we'll have to send them to SRO school, and part of this agreement we're doing now is where the city of Safford would pay 50% and the school would pay 50% of those trainings.
Chief, we've extended the agreement time now to 3 years?
Yes, the 3-year term is something that we asked for. The school was on board with that and thought that would be better than trying to redo this every 2 years. There is the clause in there that it can be canceled by either side with writing within 30 days. So it can be taken care of, but we are asking for a 3-year.
And you've got, redid some spots in the agreement, because I was concerned about the indemnification portion of it. Because in the past, we've had our problems a bit with this. Chief Brugman was here, and at that time, Mr. And there was times where our officer was mainly seemed to be the one who would just come in and be the hammer. After some of the school would do whatever disciplinary action they came, they called on the officer to put the final nail in the thing. And that's a negative approach on our officer. And so we had some discussion with the superintendent at that time, and we had some help at that coming up with Shirley Turner Chapin, but she's gone now. She was gonna keep an eye on that. But sometimes, and it was a failure in some of the policy that took place, and our officer was asked to be the negative end of their solution. And that's not how I'd like our officer to be looked on. When he walks up, I was hoping the students felt good about it.
So, Vice Mayor Ortega, Councilman Lopez, what we've done, and we have dealt with some of that, and you're going to have some of that, no matter whether it's the school resource officer or whether we send an officer from off the street. If there's a crime committed, the officer has to enforce the law.
Yeah.
And so the school will contact us sometimes even after they've disciplined them. We can't control that part, but we have talked to the school and made sure that they understand, and we're all under agreement now, that we are not school discipline. We are only what has to deal with criminal activity. So if they have a school issue, the officer is not the one that would enforce that or deal with those kind of issues. The school deals with their issues. The officer only deals with the criminal aspects of that. And part of that is we've gone to the point now where officers are teaching and mentoring, counseling, doing other things other than just enforcing the law. They're trying to build that relationship each and every day with the students, with the teachers, with the staff there at the school. so that there's a better understanding of what we can and can't do legally, because there are things that we have to follow based on case laws and laws that we can't do, that sometimes the school asks us to do, not understanding those things. And I think that might be what you're getting at, is the officers were being brought in kind of as, well, we've disciplined them, now you go ahead and discipline them again. Well, we're not there for discipline. We're only there if it's a criminal or legal type thing that we have to be involved in. So whether the officer's at the school as a school resource officer or called in by the school and comes off the street to deal with it, it still has to deal with, it has to be a criminal type incident before we should be involved or deal with it.
Mr. Arbizo, he did really good there. And he went through some of this. I don't know if you're aware of the background or not, but I did want to make that statement here in this meeting as part of the record. I'm hoping our officer isn't going to be used as the hammer.
And I appreciate that very much. I was around during that, and I do know where that came from, and I understand completely and appreciate your understanding and bring that up. We are actually working with the school. When we do get another full-time officer, we'll do an interview process, and we're going to have the school principals in on that interview process so that they get an officer that they feel comfortable with and are willing to work with also. So it's not going to be just us signing someone up there and saying, that's it, we don't really hear. We're trying to make a strong partnership where we work well with one another for the benefit of the students, because that's really what it's about.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chief.
Anybody else have any comments or questions? Then if not, we'll need a motion.
So moved.
A motion to approve the IGA between City of Safford and the school district.
Second.
And we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And next, we'll move on to item number 10.1, OMA. It's the CIP projections.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and Council. So tonight we are going to continue the capital improvement plan review. So at the last meeting, we did review the general fund and the streets HERF department. So tonight we will begin with the water fund. So I will follow along with the council packet on the screen. If you're following along in your book, we're starting on page 112, or I'm sorry, 63. Starting 63 in your packet, page 112 if you're following along on your iPads. And just as a reminder, we will stop and each department head will come up and speak to their projects, and they will be discussing the projects that are scheduled to be done in fiscal year 2022. So if you have any questions, you can stop them during that.
We're trying to locate it.
63 and
So it's 63 on your printed document, if you have your printed. If you're looking at your iPad, it's going to be page 112 of the council packet tonight.
112?
12. I'll
Sorry
write
about that.
in there. 1, 1, 2.
Oh, okay.
The clerks helped me a lot.
Oh, on your iPads, you can see the page 112.
Yeah.
So yes, so that's where we will begin.
I'm
And the
there.
first project will be the new water source exploration. So if you're all on that page, that's where we will begin. Okay. I'm gonna turn it over to Morgan, and he's going to begin with his departments.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and Council. I'd first like to start off to mention how privileged I feel to kickstart the CIP, and let's move through it smoothly. So this project here is a new water source exploration. We continually put 100,000 in there per year. This is for new sources. If somebody comes to us and would like us to test their well, they consider selling their well, we'll go and we'll test it for water quality. This is also for drilling wells if we feel that there's an area we'd like to explore. So we like to keep 100,000 in there just for those efforts. Questions on new source exploration?
You feel we're keeping up with the, restoration and all that? Our water supply, in other words.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Do you think that the efforts are, the 100,000, that the program is keeping us abreast of our water needs, maybe put it that way.
So Vice Mayor and Council, that 100,000 definitely could give us a good start. Currently, there's one well that I'm going to try to test to see what the water quality is like. We would test the well, and if there's any further negotiations, then we could budget for that in the next year.
Is there, in your presentation, is there certain pages you want me to stay on? Because you know I'd take you all over the place, so I want to stay with what you're presenting.
So we're just going to go through the CIP.
Okay.
So the next one will be the Central Water Exchange. So this Central Water Exchange is contingent upon the co-op in the city of Safford exchanging gas for water. And this location would be the isolation between systems. All it would include is a vault, a physical separation, and then a meter spud to where if they needed to purchase water from us, we could send water their direction.
This is kind of the area then now, sir, because you, I don't know if it's unloaded, but we're getting rid of some of them, like WA 1703. That's where I'm at. And WA 1805, which the upgrade on Ray Lane we're going to do without now because all that construction was contingent on the same thing you said with us with the water exchange.
Vice Mayor, Councilman Lopez, that's exactly correct. So what we wanted to do was put those projects in a different folder and not forget about them in case this doesn't go through, but we just want to display the project that will impact us if this does go through. If the exchange does not go through, those projects will then be placed back into the CIP.
But one of them you're thinking of that's on hold is on Ray Lane. I can understand the Palmer Lane one, but are we still going to need to do some work on Ray Lane eventually, still?
So what project was the
It's,
one?
I got WA 1805, that's how old that is. But I can ask you again and not keep it going in the meeting, because I'd dig into that a long time.
So if the Ray Lane project has been removed, it may have possibly been tied to central improvements.
Yeah.
To
Ray
convey
Lane
water to central area.
Okay.
I'll look into that.
I saw them and I'd have to pick your brain on it later.
Where are we in the process of negotiation with the co-op?
Go ahead, John.
Vice Mayor Ortega, Councilman Seal, we have been staying in close contact with the co-op over the last month. In fact, I just got an email from Phil Cook today, so we have been updating them on some very particular items in terms of where, easements are and where turnover points are. The email I received from Phil today said that they would be submitting to ACC either this week or next. So it's been delayed. I think, Phil has recently moved into the position, and so it was over about the last 4 to 6 weeks that we've been in closer contact with him because it's taken an inordinate amount of time. The discussions that I've had with him basically said that the ACC was having difficulty because the nature of the utilities, they were two different utilities. And of course, our exchange was predicated on the idea of an exchange of value, and the utility aspect of it was beneficial to both parties, water for Central and then the gas for us. So again, he had indicated, and we've been kind of pressing him a little bit, but he indicated that either this week or next it would go up to ACC. So they've been kind of wrestling with them a little bit. And that could take some time once it gets to them.
It could, and so as the contract is written, there's a December kind of deadline for approval. And so we might have to extend, if it's before ACC and it goes beyond that, we would come back and get an extension. Hopefully it doesn't, but, with them, it's hard to tell. So we're managing it, we're talking to them, we're trying to press the process. And I've impressed upon him, because we had some concerns due to reach purchases on the co-op side. We wanted to make sure that things weren't being held up unnecessarily. And so we've been
especially over the past month, pressing the issue even more. So if it becomes necessary, we can always come back and do an extension, so they have an opportunity to get this through.
It almost seems like you have two of them in common, that this is, you've set them aside, or you took them off the 5-year plan or something like that. And that's an upgrade on 8th Avenue to the Morris well field, and then the WA 2202, an upgrade on 8th Avenue. It's like you said, we've had not any failures on this line or stuff, so you've removed it. Are these still important projects? Because water's very important.
Vice Mayor, Councilman Lopez, thank you for that question. So going through this CIP process for the first time as the manager, I wanted to look at the entire scope, the CIP, and see what was obtainable, what was realistic. So what you see on this current CIP now is the projects that I've identified that need to be addressed. What it felt like was a lot of those projects were put on the CIP and they kept getting pushed out and pushed out. And we just had a lot of money tied up where we necessarily weren't even going to get to it. They were just placeholders. So now we have them currently as placeholders, but in another folder to where when we get these projects done, we can pull them back out as needed.
Okay, because one of them was dated 17 and the other one 22, so I didn't know how you're running them together, but I'm sure you'll let me know eventually.
Go ahead, John.
Vice Mayor Ortega, Councilman Lopez, my experience with capital improvement programs is doing a fully funded CIP, which means that if I have 5 years of capital projects, those are the projects I intend to build, and I have the resources necessary to do so. Some of the projects that were in here, and of course we had long discussions about those items that we took out, and we held on to them for a reason, because we're not saying they're going away. We're saying that within the 5-year CIP, either they're not a priority or they're just not going to happen. And so any projects that you have seen be pulled out of the CIP are simply projects that we did not feel were going to go in that 5-year period. Some of them may come back. Some of them were what they called, developer-driven projects. Well, I don't want our available resources being held up because we're waiting for a developer to come in maybe and do something. But we have contingencies in our utilities. So let's say somebody did come in and we didn't put that project in, we have the ability to move that project back in, which probably would start with design anyway. And then we can move forward and then plan it the next year, because then it would be up and running. So this is a very important concept, not just for water and wastewater, but for all of our CIP, is that it's not a wish list. It's a list over a 5-year period that you fully intend to construct. And that's what we brought forward.
That's why the numbering of this, with the legend you guys have given us to utilize, this is a water project in the year 22, and it has a 2 as priority, yet it's been removed from the 5-year plan. That's why it brought my attention. Is this important or isn't it? But you're saying that
If it was removed, then it would not be considered a priority right now.
priority right now, okay,
Yeah.
so, all right.
Yeah,
I'll keep an eye on it though,
we can put it back in.
yeah, just,
Any further questions on the exchange? So this next project is the U of A wells. So this was
I left the
currently
page number, Mr. Seal, of course.
114.
114, thank you, sir.
So this project was already budgeted for this fiscal year. You see it was budgeted for $300,000. What we've been doing this year is doing our preliminary water quality testing. The concept behind that is that we would test the water quality as the strata falls, to where we were going to elevate the pump and see if we can identify what strata is producing the high fluorides. We did that and we were not able to drop the fluorides enough to where now I'm going to have the well pulled and seal grout the bottom of the well up to the bottom strata to see if that helps. So what we're trying to do is identify, can we discover where the fluoride's coming from, and if so, block that strata off to produce a quality well that we can use instead of going ahead and putting $300,000 into the ground and realize that we get the exact same product that we had before. That's what I'm trying to avoid. So these funds are a carryover to where if we can identify where the fluoride is and isolate it, and then we will move forward with drilling another well.
And the fluoride is a difficult thing to get rid of, is that correct?
Vice Mayor, Councilman Seal, that's correct. It's definitely an involved process more than what our arsenic removal. There's a lot of byproduct that is created off of that fluoride and very expensive to treat fluoride.
There's no blending in that area for you at this time.
Vice Mayor, Councilman Lopez, we actually did consider the blending option, and the study came back that it was not feasible to do that until there was a certain volume that was needed out south of town. And blending that water would construct a transmission line from the U of A tank, an isolated line from the U of A tank to the Thunderbird tank. So we would put a transmission line solely to transport that water from tank to tank. And that's why it wasn't going to be feasible for the cost associated with that.
Okay, sir.
$119 will be the next page. So this project is the extension for the Sanchez Bridge. This has been, there's $30,000 budgeted for design, and in fiscal year 2024 will be construction. This will be a project to place or install a line underneath the Sanchez Bridge, and this would tie into the East Valley Sanchez project, the project that would increase the line diameter from Bonita Creek, and it would travel underneath the bridge down our 24-inch line. Any questions on that project? So the Main Street upgrade, this project is currently in phases. We did complete the 7th Avenue project. Our next project will be the yellow line indicated at the top. And that is to replace the 1920s infrastructure that's in the ground going through alleyways, and we'll replace that with C900. It's currently budgeted $120,000 for that.
1920s a type of pipe, or the year it got
No, the
put in?
year it was installed.
But it might be wood.
We have found a lot of wood down there. I don't believe this one is. I believe it's cast iron.
Cast iron, not wood pipe.
There may be some sections in there, but I wouldn't think so,
Okay.
of the wood. Any other questions? So the Rally project, the Rally and Booster Building upgrade, this would, indicated by the red line, we are going to be rerouting and getting rid of the ductile iron or the cast iron 1930s pipe that goes diagonally through that area. So the project consists of design for this year, the plan and design for $85,000. And we will be placing lines, C900 in the area of red on that map. The construction will be done in 2025 at a $2.2 million. Any questions on that? The next project is the First Avenue in Thatcher. This will be in phases as well. We have our first phase where we've had a lot of breaks. This is also 1930s ductile iron pipe or cast iron pipe. the same that goes through the Raleigh Drive. The reason why we broke this up in phases is that this project will be included, we're trying to include this in the WIFA fund. So we will be having the design and construction done in this next fiscal year. Any other questions? Or any questions at all? The next project is the Carrasco Well Treatment Plant. This project is almost finalized in design. It already has been approved through WIFA to be included in the, for the excess funds of Bonita 4 and 5. So once the plans are approved or finalized, we will take it to the WIFA for them to review, and then we will get ADQ approval to then go out for bid. And this will all be done in the fiscal year of 2022. Any questions on that project? Our next project is the well building rehabilitation. This is our ongoing efforts to rehab the well building itself and also place them all the wells on the SCADA to where then we can remotely access them and start and stop the wells. We have $50,000 budgeted for 2022, and we will be rehabbing all their pump this coming year.
Do we have dedicated generators to those sites?
So Vice Mayor, Councilman Lopez, currently with the older buildings, as we reconstruct these buildings, we have transfer switches installed on them to where that would allow us to mobilize a mobile generator, hook them up, and start them up through the generator.
If you had to take one out there?
Correct. We do not have designated permanent generators there, but we are planning for when, if there was ever a power situation, we could still power them on. Any other questions? The next project is the airport water. As we've discussed in council meetings, there's a need for fire supply out there. So we do have budgeted $75,000 for this coming year for 2022 for design, plan and design. And 2023 will be the construction at $1 million. However, we are reviewing options for that area, so that number may increase or it'll fluctuate once we dial in what we would like to do out there.
What do you think it's gonna take? Tank?
Currently, right now, there is going to be needed a tank up there for fire protection.
That's something we have to move on. That airport is so important. That's a diamond in the rough up there.
As we review these options, we're definitely going to be thinking about the future and the potential out at the airport, as we've heard from council that it is an item that is needed. So we want to keep that in mind of what we put in the ground. We want it to be there for the next 30 plus years. Any other questions? So moving on to page 127. Moving on to the wastewater fund. This is the manhole rehabilitation. What this consists of is a epoxy product going inside the manhole that covers the cement barrel, which then will protect it from H2S gases and deterioration. This project is out to bid now, and we budget every year for 100 manholes to be done. So you will see a continuation of budgeted amounts to do that.
And then once you get through, you just start all over again, basically.
Well, hopefully not, but.
I mean, or how long, you know,
So this epoxy product is typically, what I've heard is a 20-year product.
good.
Question. How many have we done already?
Vice Mayor, Councilman Sill, we've actually done around 300 to 400 currently, and we have another 100 going out to bid right now. Any other questions? The next project is the reclaim pond and pumping. This would be the storage facility for the effluent water that we could stockpile the effluent water to then push to the fairgrounds and the golf course. We actually just finished up with the removal of a lot of the soil to where now it is ready for the clay lining to be bid out. And so for the $475,000, we will get the clay line and the turnout structure. The turnout structure is the device that's responsible for either sending the water to the pond or to the river.
And is that bad in the floodplain?
Vice Mayor, Councilman Lopez, there wouldn't be any issue. Right now, we put that to the river right now. If the water were to come up and flood our pond, it's not going to cause any damage to the pond.
So baseball fields north of that might have a chance.
So directly to the north of that is the river. So if you're
Okay,
going
south,
southeast,
Okay, south. You can take the trail, okay. So south of that.
so south of that, if you construct baseball fields there, it may be underwater. I mean, like we've said before, it's gone up to the Pepsi plant, so
Yeah.
there is a concern about that.
Okay, just, I'd throw my pitch in there, but I went the wrong direction, but,
No, you're all right.
okay.
The next project is the reclaimed water extension to the Graham County Fairgrounds. This project is currently WIFA funded. The design is complete, and we will be constructing this coming year. It'll be going out to bid July, August, and we'll get going on that. So the bottom portion from Relation down to the Armory, that will be a contractor item. The red section that you see from 8th to the highway will be in-house. We plan on constructing that in-house like we did 14th Avenue. And that will complete the tie-in from the wastewater treatment plant to 14th Avenue of what we have currently.
Is there any special coordination we're gonna have to do with the county once we get there for them to receive it?
So Vice Mayor, Councilman Lopez, this line will go directly to that pond, and so when we get it constructed, we just turn the pumps on and it'll flow right into their pond.
And then they got it,
And they got it.
okay.
Any other questions? So the next project is one that I feel it would be important to have. This is the Mesa Yard Sewer Extension. This would extend a sewer main from the ADOT yard through our Mesa Yard area. What it would do is allow us to hook up our MIOC, our Mesa Yard Office Complex, our electric building, our maintenance building, and then also a wash bay out back. I did some calculations and we could capture around 500,000 gallons of water per year that we can send to the wastewater facility if we were to do that. Currently, right now, all of those facilities are on septic systems, to where then I would like to hook them to our city collection system. So currently we have 70,000 budgeted for plan and design in 2022. and an estimated $550 for construction in 2023. Any questions? If you can go back one, I'd actually like to talk about the Smith Well project. So currently, right now, the Smith Well is an inactive potable well. We did commission that well in 2011, 2013 due to the fluoride content and the total dissolved solids. If we ever wanted to use this as a potable well, we would have to initiate the resampling and hope that everything pans out. While we don't utilize that well, we feel like there's a lot of potential for us to utilize that well in a fashion to supplement the reuse. So what we would like to do is construct a line from that well underneath the bridge and dump it into our effluent pond to increase our storage. This will allow us to increase our volume and then increase our users. So if we have more water in the pond, we can then start sprinkling more parks or areas along that 14th Avenue path that we're taking that are on potable water, that are currently using potable water for irrigation. Are there any questions about that project? Yeah, we're going for 2022. Yeah, so 2022 will be the plan and design, and then we would construct that in 2023. Then our final project is the capital maintenance at the wastewater treatment facility. For this coming fiscal year, we have $350,000 budget for that. What that money is used for is any emergency items that need to be purchased, and then also some larger improvements of the plant. This coming year, I believe that a clarifier will need to be rehabbed, meaning that the metal components, the mechanism from the clarifier will need to be removed, sandblasted, and recoated. I did have the metalwork inspected, and they said that it is there is a lot of corrosion, and I definitely don't want that to fail. So I will plan on rehabbing that clarifier this coming year.
How much longer we have the contract with them people?
So Vice Mayor, Councilman Lopez, we actually received qualifications last Thursday. We will be reviewing the qualifications for 5 interested contractors, and that includes Infomark, so 4 others. After the review of the qualifications, we will select a contractor, and we will go into a negotiation. So Infomark's contract ends June 30 of this year.
So we're still going for, we still want to use contractors for that. We never see in the future where we have it ourselves.
Vice Mayor, Councilman Lopez, currently right now, we felt it would be best to continue with the contractor and set ourselves up to take it over in the future. I wish we could do it now, but I believe if we tried to do it now, it'd be possibly a little premature. I want to make sure that we succeed when we do it.
You seem to be keeping up the maintenance on it, so hopefully.
We're definitely turning it around. There's been a lot of work that's been done over there. We are moving into a positive path. It's taken a lot of work to do that and a lot of money, but I believe it's in our best interest to get that plant back to where it was originally and working properly.
No matter what takes place, we keep Al.
Al's there. He's the heart and soul of that
Okay.
place. So I don't know if you can kick him out. You might find him on the weekends jumping the fence if we try to fire him.
Yeah, okay.
We're gonna just have one thing. I'd like to say thank you for all the work you're doing out there when you took me for a tour around the area, and great job. That's all I could say.
Thank you, Councilman
Good
Angelo.
work.
Yeah, it's been pretty fun. So I appreciate the opportunity to do it.
You're not done, are you?
I am, that's the last one.
Okay, I have a question on the south end of Daly Estates where
Okay.
it came before us before for 65 more homes to go in there. It's been a couple years maybe, I don't know. Where are we on that?
So Vice Mayor, Councilman Lopez, we have actually reviewed and approved water plans for that subdivision. Where they're at with that is kind of hard to say because it's all developer driven. So it all depends on when the developer wants to get it done. We've approved the plans to move forward. There's a lot of infrastructure that have to put in, streets, sewer, water, electricity. So it all depends on their pace.
So, but am I remembering it right? Was it about 65 homes?
Yeah, you're correct. So the first phase was 65 homes. Any additional, so the second phase would require water improvements that they would have to pay for.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, council members. I have 3 projects for the gas division to present to you today. The first is going to be Town and Country project. This project is actually currently being done. This is going to be the second half of it. We planned on starting in January of 2021 and plan on finishing in December of 2021. Next project we have is our meter replacement project. This is going to be a 2-year project, and it's going to consist of replacing over 2,800 meters that we have in the system that are over 10 years old. We're going to be using the existing smart points that are currently in place. We plan on replacing a couple of them. All these meters will be temperature compensated, and once this project is complete, we can actually start a testing schedule, and instead of replacing them every 10 years, we can just start testing them every 10 years and replace them as needed. So this will be the first quarter of the project.
Because there's, you say they're 30 to 40 years old now.
Some of them are, yes, sir.
Some of them. And so there's not a lot of moving parts in them. Are some of them you changed out, or have we already changed the gauges on them to where they're reporting to the billing?
Indexes, sir, we've replaced some of the smart points, and we've looked at the indexes. It's cheap. An index runs around $20. A gas meter runs about $80. It's almost better just to replace the whole thing. There are moving parts inside. The biggest issue we have is that our older meters are not temperature compensated, and the newer meters are. So, in other words, we sell gas at 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So when it's hotter than that, you get less gas for the money. When it's colder than that, you get more gas for the money. So what's going on is, like in the summertime, you're actually paying for gas that you're not. You're paying a little bit of over what you should be paying for gas. And in the wintertime, you're actually paying less than you should be paying. So these temperature compensated meters take care of that and put everything on a flat rate. Unfortunately, a lot of our meters, over 2,800 of them, aren't temperature compensated. So that's the biggest issue. We want to standardize everything, have them all the same. And after that, they'll be real easy to replace, test, and everything else.
Last time you presented, you said we only had 1% loss.
Yeah.
So we're not losing anything on these old meters.
No, we're not. We're not losing anything. It's just the accounting way. So in the summertime, we'll actually sell more gas than we buy, and in the wintertime, we'll actually lose gas on that part. But it all comes back with temperature compensation and everything else comes out to 1%. We just want them all temperature compensated so we can get a more accurate count.
That's what I'd like to hear. More accurate.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Our third project is the co-op switchover. This project is has a cost of $12,000, and it's changing everything else that we have in our area, from the co-op to us. So it's gonna be Montana Vista, FedEx, ADOT Yard. Will include replacing the meters that needed to be replaced and putting smart points on all the meters that need to be smart point, and replacing any risers and things that need to be replaced.
Go ahead, John.
And given the size of this project, we'll be taking this out of the CIP and put it in an operating, because it doesn't reach a threshold for CIP. So
Yeah.
this will be something we take out, and it'll end up in operational.
Montana, it seems to have slowed down. Did they stop?
No, they're actually continuing on. They have the water line in, and the co-op is gonna be putting gas in pretty quick to that area.
Okay.
The second half. And that's all I have to present. Thank you.
Thank you.
That begins on page 139.
139.
139, yeah. Vice Mayor, Council, this first project is for design to upgrade our 69 kVA buswork in our substation. If you look at the picture up there, it's them wires that are between those steel poles right there. This is the oldest part of our substation. The concrete foundations are in question. It's dating back to probably the 70s, the best we can tell. And the biggest concern we have with this is that we can't do any maintenance on this without taking a system-wide outage to do any repairs. If anything was damaged in there, or if we want to replace an insulator, we got to take down the entire system. That would be a citywide outage. So we would like to rebuild this and have it to where we can isolate sections of it so we can do maintenance on it. And there's also a couple of switches in there that have been leaking some oil, and we want to have them looked at during this process too, and either have them repaired or replaced. If you have any questions on this project. We'd like to do construction next year, but design this year. This project is to replace all of our number 6 and number 4 copper conductor on the distribution side. Again, these conductors are the oldest part of our distribution system. They go back to when the co-op actually owned these poles and wires. And the biggest issue we have with this number 6 is if we follow our APA safety manual that we've adopted, you can't work on this number 6 when it's energized. And these are all residential areas, and we were going to phase this into 3 different phases, but we decided to just lump it into one project to reduce mobilization fees and engineering costs and inspections and stuff like that. And we want to replace it all with number 2 ACSR. I don't know if there's any questions on that one.
I had questions on this, and so I got a hold of Mr. Bratz, and he let me go on a ride-along. Because he's had quite a few projects over the past 8 years where he's been reconductoring, redoing the poles, and a lot of stuff within the town. And I said, when are you going to be done? And so he took me on a ride-along. I say 17 miles, he says 16, of this number 6 that's still in the air. And they're just little spurs, that go off like most of Southwest Village, or they go just off the main line a little bit, and it's there. He showed me that there's 16 miles worth of it that needs to be changed out, so.
Another part of this conductor is too, when it gets damaged, if it hits the ground, it gets annealed and it's weakened, and it just gets repaired and spliced, and there's splices all over this conductor everywhere, and it's time to just replace it. It's kind of saturated in a way with additional growth and loads increasing. It needs to be replaced.
And the number 6 wire he's talking about, the diameter is not much bigger than the tubing that goes to our evaporative coolers, so it's kind of small, and he kind of convinced me that it was needed, so that's my 2 cents.
It has a pretty good price tag on it, but it'll improve our system dramatically. And we'll be replacing poles as needed to in this project. We estimate it to probably be about a year to complete.
The heartburn I had was it takes so long for the communication to get off the old poles. Once we got a brand new pole and an old pole stub there, and TV and telephone are still on there, and they won't get off. So,
I was actually surprised today, there was 2 poles over by the Coke plant that we turned into CenturyLink last week, actually. And Team Fishel was over there today replacing those poles. They can replace a pole, but they can't do a transfer.
well, I think my idea would speed them up.
But we're on them constantly, sending them emails, and they contract that out too.
Okay, sir.
But that's a heartburn for me also. This last one for me is the pole attachment audit and testing. Back in 17, we did an audit on our system and tested all of our poles for strength. And the biggest part of this audit is we want to make sure the attachments are correct so we can bill CenturyLink and Sparklight the correct amount. And when we did the way they do this test on the poles, if it's between 67 and 34% strength there, they prioritize it as a reject. And if it's below 33%, it's a priority reject. And we had 150 poles that tested between 68 and 75%. So this go around, we're going to test those 150 poles because we realize within 5 years they haven't improved. So those poles could fall into a reject category. And then we'll do another system-wide audit in another 5 years. We can do it every 5 years per our contract with CenturyLink and Sparklight.
And they share cost.
And they just share the cost for the audit. And that's what I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Evening, Vice Mayor and Council. I have a couple left. I thought I finished mine up last time, but I got a couple left. So in the sanitation budget, I've got 20,000 in next fiscal year, and this is a concept that I've been working on the last couple of years, but we've kind of got a gathering of dumpsters down on Central Avenue by Genevieve's. I've been visiting with Jenny a little bit, and the idea here is to get approval from ADOT to construct a dumpster enclosure in our parking lot in that corner of that lot. I've kind of got a preliminary design put together. I need to get with ADOT, get their approval, and then we could construct a dumpster. It would be a dumpster enclosure that would actually allow pedestrians to walk in without having to open the gates. It would be an accessible dumpster that Genevieve's businesses there on that side of town could use that dumpster, and we could get rid of the unsightly dumpsters that we have along Central Avenue. That being said, we also have a few dumpsters down on 7th at the west end of town. I have visited with County Manager Dustin Welker about the possibility of putting one in that old probation office parking lot. He wants me to draw something up, show it to him, so there is a potential of possibly doing one at the other end and doing the same thing, making sure we have coverage at those two ends. Everybody in between kind of uses the alleys and has their dumpsters in the back, and we're just trying to keep the unsightly trash off the main street. So that's what this project is, and that 20,000 would hopefully, we would do part of it in-house and then bid out some of the block work. We'd make them split face block, make them look somewhat nice and presentable. There'll still be a dumpster enclosure, but the idea would be kind of keep the garbage cans off the street. Any questions on that?
I'm hoping we get some of our orange-dressed people back soon to help our employees a little bit. They get a little overwhelmed on that Main Street after a weekend sometimes.
Yeah.
We used to have that help.
On the end of Main Street there by the, by the courthouse there, we were thinking about putting one, that little restaurant, you would use it, and
So-
Kempton's would too, wouldn't they?
Well, Kempton's has one up there by their wash bay, and they use that one. It would be right across from the Brick Oven Pizza place there on
Yeah.
7th. That's the one that she has one around the corner there, and we're allowing to keep it on that driveway for now because nobody's using that. But eventually, if they're using that building, she'll need to use elsewhere. This is our roll-off system for the landfill. This is a carryover from last year. We had 250,000 budgeted. We've been actively seeking a roll-off truck, a used truck that we could purchase to to haul these containers from the transfer station down by the scale house up to the pit. We're not gonna go ahead and buy any containers until we actually find a truck. We had a couple that we were ready to look at, and as soon as we call on them, they're gone. And so it's a process to try and find one that's not completely beat up, but we can't afford a brand new one, and it doesn't make sense to buy something new for just to transfer to the pit. So hopefully we can find a truck here shortly. We might even find it before the end of this fiscal year. Might affect these numbers a little bit, but if we get a truck, then we can purchase the containers, and I'm actively working on the design of the transfer station walls themselves, and that'll be bid out. That would be the $150,000. So it's an ongoing process. And it's well needed. We know we need to keep the citizens out of our pit, and now we're in these smaller cells. It's just it's tighter and tighter. And so if we can keep the public down here, it would help immensely. This is our drainage spillways project. Part of our permit up there, our vertical expansion, is we have to put these spillways coming off these slopes, mostly along the east bank down into the retention basin. We're planning on having one or two of these constructed by the end of this fiscal year. We had 50,000 budgeted last year. I'm estimating we're going to be able to get these one or two in this year for around $12,000 to $15,000 each. So this is estimating 25,000 for the next 2 years to do the other remaining 4 that would have to be along that east side. So we'll have a better idea after this year. We'll have to grade out a 3-to-1 slope, rock it, and then we're going to grout it solid, full of cement slurry. Any questions on the spillways? This is my last one. Can you back up, Alma? I just want to back up to 97, the streets. It's page 97 on your iPad. Yeah, and I just wanted to touch base on this because these 3 projects on 97, 98, and 99. We've talked about these in the past. They're not next year's projects, but I've got 3 projects listed there that could be potential CDBG projects. Our next round is 23, but we'll probably start in this next coming fiscal year, start some of the planning, start some of the public meetings, get some involvement from the community to find out what we should use. We've got 3 areas listed here. One of them's across 8th Avenue in the Flats area. The next one is around the swimming pool area, doing sidewalks, and then the other one would be over in Jensen Addition. Those are our kind of 3 thoughts on CDBG project locations. Granted, only one of those would probably go for the first in 23, and then we would be out another 4 years if we kind of continue to do sidewalk projects. Just wanted to bring this up to make sure, because we're kind of thinking our focus would be on that Tortilla Flats area. We started that project a few cycles ago before I actually got here. This would be finish that area out. Just wanted to make sure that's kind of our priority, at least as far as council moving forward. The only caveat I would throw in there is if for some reason, I'm still working with the Catholic Church, trying to get them to respond as far as purchasing property there on the east side of the church between 1st and 2nd Avenue. If we could get that and possibly throw a park design and construction in that area as a CDBG project, one of those wouldn't require a public census to go out and survey the community, so we could do it similar to what we did at Glen Meadows. I just wanted to throw that out there. That's a caveat that could happen if we could get to that point, but it may not happen this cycle. It might be in the next cycle, but that's something I want to look towards is getting a park down in that area. So we're still on board with, this is kind of our first priority as far as sidewalks.
And that's the way the CBG has to be spent on the same project. You can't have different ones.
Yeah, you can't spread it out. We actually were able to use it on Firth Park and Glen Meadows together as far as the ADA surface. that was kind of a combined, but I can't do some sidewalks here and there, and we also can't just do handicap ramps. It actually has to be a full working system. We talked about doing that, and they wouldn't allow that either.
So sidewalks in that side of the highway and a park, that's not considered one attempt for you?
No, that would be a project. That would work.
That would work,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, that would be one project, but I couldn't do part of that and then part of the stuff by the pool or part of Jensen Addition. I
Yeah,
couldn't piece it out
yeah.
like that.
So the CBG, all on that side could work.
Yeah, the estimate we have for that area should, depending on our funding, we don't know what the funding would be, but the last time we had around, it was around 260,000, so.
I get you started.
Start saving your money now, so if we give this money away, like we did last time, we can still do the project.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions on my stuff?
I think that was fine.
All right, thank you.
What you like to say, just good job on this CIP plan booklet that you passed out to us. It's very easy to understand and follow.
I want to give credit again to Hillary, Hillary Cunin, project manager. She does some excellent work here, so she gets all the credit.
Good. Okay, then. Then we'll go ahead and move on to number 11, the reports. Everybody have a chance to go through the P-card reports? Revenue's over 5,000? Over 5,000. Expenses? Golly, you kidding me? Well, let's move on then.
Yeah, we ain't gonna be here all night.
Okay, and number 12, announcement of current events. Anybody?
Vice Mayor, I just wanted to discuss the recent events in the Midwest that resulted in the snowstorm and the shortage in terms of electricity. The mayor had asked me to comment just to make the public aware that obviously our February bill for electricity was much higher than normal as a result of that event. I think a lot of areas in the country, kind of in this area anyway, suffered a similar fate. However, we, with our reserves and, we tend to budget somewhat conservatively, so we have some additional funding available for the purchase of electricity. So all of that will be covered by the fund, and there will be no increase passed on to the customers as a result of that event. So I did want to make that clear so that it's out there for the public, so they don't think that somehow, because those prices were up, that somehow it's going to have an impact on their bill.
Is there anything in the making that we can recoup our monies?
Vice Mayor Ortega, Councilman Lopez, there's been some preliminary discussions about something at a federal level, but there's nothing concrete yet at this point.
And I wanted to point out, I got a call from Bill Brandow last week. Some of you may be aware of what the grant they got to do some fire breaks along the river bridges. They did Fort Thomas. I don't know if you've been out there to Fort Thomas Bridge. They tore out all the salt cedars 300 feet each way of that one, and they're currently working on Thatcher's, I believe, at Ray Lane. They should be on our bridge here this week. In case you get a call or wonder what's going on out there, I just wanted you to be aware. They're clearing the salt cedars 300 feet each way of the bridge. It's kind of a fire break. So be aware of that. I also we hired a new assistant city engineer. Gabe Bowman is here tonight, and I just wanted to introduce you all to him. He started today, so we thought we'd break him out right and make him come to a council meeting for a while and see how he did. So we want to welcome him to the staff. So.
Glad to have you. Okay, then, if there is nothing else, we'll need a motion to convene the regular meeting and go into a work session.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, to close the regular meeting of the council and reconvene into a council work session. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Take a little 5-minute break and then get going on the work session.
Cool.
Yeah. Session started. Um, The items we'll be discussing, number one, the fire suppression fees. Morgan, would you want to get us going on that?
A hot topic, and I hope I get a lot of interaction with you guys. So,
Well, and don't plan on eating dinner at the house anymore either.
okay.
Got that?
Well played.
That's what he said.
Be a little while.
So this item is for information, discussion, and direction. What I'm seeking is direction from you guys of what you would like to see, but I'll also give you my recommendation. So kind of a background for this item is in April 24th of 1997, Ken Meekum, he discussed the need to recover the cost of providing additional system capacity to supply water to site-specific fire protection services.
Okay, great. So 94 with Mr. Makem, that's Gila Resources,
97, and I believe that would probably be other resources.
which was a for-profit group.
I don't necessarily know the ins and outs of it, but
Okay.
from what I hear, it was leaning
All
towards
right.
that. So it was 1997, Ken Meekum, and so he specified that the site-specific fire protection system includes sprinkler system, private hydrants, standpipes, and et cetera. Public hydrants are not tied to a fee, as they are within public property and serve a large area, so serve multiple businesses. The purpose of the fire sprinkler system is to protect life and property. The National Fire Protection Association states that with a properly installed and maintained sprinkler system in place, it reduces the chances of fatalities by 50 to 75% and property loss by 50 to 66%. Sprinkler systems are capable of reacting quickly and dramatically reducing heat, flames, and smoke produced by fire. So the recommendation that I would like to recommend is that we continue to charge the service of water protection to private businesses as it serves, improves the ability to save life and property. The purpose of this fee is due to the requirement of maintenance and repair and for the water system and electricity consumed to pump water to the storage tanks to be capable of providing this service to an isolated location. However, I believe we should simplify the charges / rates as follows. I propose that we remove the lump sum and partial payment option and reduce the full monthly rate by 50%. So is everybody familiar with the current rate structure and how it's broken out? So currently, if somebody comes and is required to install a fire protection system within their business, they have three options. They can either pay one lump sum and not have a monthly fee. They can either pay a partial, so half of the lump sum, and have a reduced monthly fee, or they can opt to not pay anything up front and have an increased monthly fee. So what I'm proposing is that we get rid of all of the lump sum options and reduce that full monthly fee by 50%, which will match the reduced monthly fee. So do you have the pay structure in front of you? Vice Mayor John Casella would like to speak.
He's totally focused.
Vice Mayor.
Go ahead. I was just looking for it on my thing here. Go ahead.
Are you looking for the page?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 163.
Almost at the bottom.
Yeah. Okay.
You got it?
Yeah.
Vice Mayor and members of council, I just wanted to say that before we even looked at changing the fee, we looked at the impact of the revenue on the water fund just to make sure that it wasn't going to have a significant impact. And again, it wouldn't have a significant impact. And so in adjusting the fee, we tried to make it more in line with the service rendered. So once that the sprinkler systems are in, essentially you're paying an admin fee because we're getting water to the pipe so that when the sprinklers hopefully go off, there's water in it. So there's a much lower fee, but it's really predicated more on the level of service that we're providing. And given the fact that the revenue being generated wasn't that much to begin with, removal of these large lump sum payments really will have virtually no impact on the fund.
Are there any questions so far? So I recommend reducing the full monthly rate by 50%. By doing so, this will make the service more affordable and lessen the burden of the lump sum option for business owners. The developer would still be responsible to pay for the construction cost of the required labor and material for the tap and installation of needed pipe to the property line. It is proposed that the monthly rate be reduced to the new proposed rate to all existing suppression systems that have paid partial payments. So the partial payments, it's not going to affect them. They've already paid the partial, and their monthly fee will stay the same. So it's going to be at that reduced rate. So those who pay a full monthly rate, we would reduce them down to that same monthly fee. And for all future private fire suppression systems. So the existing businesses that chose to pay the lump sum fee will be exempt from this, and they will not be required to pay the monthly fee. And I attached the proposed fees and the current fee structure. And that's all I have for you.
Question.
Go ahead.
Well, this came to my attention when a friend of mine built a building, and they're ready to move in, and all of a sudden they get a bill from the city for $14,000 for their sprinkler system, which they'd already paid for the system, they'd paid for the backflow system, they'd paid for the infrastructure up to their building. They got charged $14,000. And so I asked David Kincaid at the time, why this was the case, because they said, well, that's to compensate for stress on our water system. Well, a sprinkler system puts no stress on our system. It saves us a lot of stress, because the guy who has a building that's 1 square foot less next door, when his catches on fire, that's what puts the stress on our system. He's got that water backup already. It's just that he pays nothing for it because it's the city paid it. And so he had a 4-inch line, I guess, because he paid $14,000. So you're telling me that if he built that building today, he would pay $35.45 a month. That's all he would pay after he put all those systems. Is that correct?
Correct.
If he paid partial lump sum, or?
He pays nothing now
Paid
up front, right? He just would pay the $35.
Correct. Vice Mayor and Councilman Seal, Councilman Lopez, if somebody were to build that same structure with a 4-inch, in the past, they could have paid the $14,000 and not had a monthly fee. Or they could pay partial, the 50% of the lump and pay 50% of the monthly. I'm proposing that we reduce everything to the 50% of the monthly, to where then we take down, we reduce the full monthly and not require them to pay any type of lump sum up front. So the previous thought process was that it was available storage, or we needed that water for available storage to fight fires and putting stress on the system. However, Councilman Seal noted that it does not put as much stress on the system as a hydrant, which I agree with. The cost would be more towards the repair that the city has to do on lines to keep water in the pipes, and then also the cost of the power consumption. So we're constantly pumping water up to higher elevations to create the pressure needed for the fire suppression. Going through this process, I was reading a lot of material, and AWWA, it's American Water Works Association, that's kind of an industry standard. And so I started at the basis there, and they recommend that people charge for fire protection. They even talk about charging for public hydrants and how we're not going to do that, but I feel like we should keep this fee in place just for the fact that we have the maintenance required to keep the water in the pipes for one, and then the consumption, the power consumption to take the water from one elevation to the next, to give the business owner an added benefit to protect their building. When these sprinkler systems do go off, there is a lot of potential to protect your building and property, to where if one building has a sprinkler system, there's a chance for the fire department to save that building. If they did not require to have that sprinkler system, the fire department would be protecting the other buildings. So that is an added benefit to a site-specific situation, and that's why I feel that the fees should apply, but not to the extent of what they are now.
And like you said, it helps that site-specific location, who's already spent, I don't know how many tens of thousands of dollars to protect themselves. And I'm curious, we talk about the maintenance and what it takes to get the water there. Does it cost us less to get the water to the hydrant than it does to get it to their little line?
Vice Mayor, Councilman Seal, no, it wouldn't cost any more to get it to the hydrant than it does to the site-specific line.
But it does it cost any less?
It does not cost any less, no.
Okay. So that's my whole point, I think, is that we're penalizing people who have tried to protect their property at great expense. They put less strain on our water system because they have a sprinkler system that will allow us to put the fire out using a lot less water. And I think Chief Bingham here, maybe he can address how many times we've used these, and how much, I was on the department for 38 years, and I don't think we use sprinkler systems very often. And so for the most part, they're paying a fee, whatever it might be, for something that they will probably never use. If they do use it, they've saved us a lot of expense because they've used a lot less water. And the guy next door, he's getting that water for free and pays nothing. So I don't know how everybody feels about it, but that's just my take on it. And I appreciate all the work you've done, and it's certainly a lot more palatable, to pay $35 a month than to have to pay, 14 or 18 or 20,000, whatever the case might be, depending on the size of their line. But, I've always felt that we spend money on economic development. We want to attract businesses here, and then, we kind of penalize them because of the fee structure that we've had in place. And I agree, this is a lot better. But, government sometimes does things that make sense. Okay, sometimes. But sometimes they do things just because they can. I think when this thing was instituted, it wasn't by the city of Safford, but I think it was done because they could. And it put a lot of money in their bank account. Anyway, that's just how I feel about it.
That was my, sorry.
Go ahead.
That was my question, that in '97, it was brought forward, I believe, by Gila Resources, which managed our city and town, and they were for profit. So there's a difference there in how that was structured. Our individual meters at our homes, we pay a base rate on those. And,
Correct.
And that's kind of how I see this possibly too, is a base rate. And then also we require them to do their backflow now, the past few years. Is that a test every year?
So Vice Mayor, Councilman Lopez, the backflow is a required device for fire suppression systems, and it is an annual inspection to ensure that that is working properly. And then also the businesses itself, or the domestic water, the potable water that goes into the building, they're required to have a backflow device that's required to be tested annually. You brought up kind of a point that when I was looking into this, I was trying to have my feet on both sides of this. I wanted to think about the business owner. I wanted to be able to reduce the cost and make it more affordable, less burdensome. And so I kind of viewed it as the water base rate as well. You know, if you don't use any water at your home, you still pay money. And if you don't want that service, then you turn the meter off and excode it. That's kind of how I view the fire protection as well. So I tried to look at it from both sides, and I believe I brought something that kind of meets in the middle, but I want you to remember that this is for discussion and direction. This is what we wanted to bring something to you, because this has been a topic for many years. So we wanted to kind of reach a resolve and put this to bed for the next 30 years so I can retire and not deal with it again.
Because you're hungry. But no, I've heard about this for a few years now too, and I kind of thought it was overburdensome, you know, to them. And so, you know, I'm glad to see you trying to come up with something to alleviate it.
Just a note, Vice Mayor and Council, looking through all of these, you know, I was reading and it just seemed like a lot of people were charging different rates. So what I did was, we do a lot of Tucson water specifications, so I looked at Tucson water rates. And the rate that I have proposed is actually slightly lower than what Tucson, if we were to just go with Tucson water specifications, we're going to be charging them less than what Tucson Water does for the same service. For example, a 4-inch service, fire suppression in Tucson Water would be $39.86, where I'm proposing a $35.45 charge. And through the course of the entire pay structure, we are below what Tucson Water would charge.
Thank you, sir.
I know where I want to be. I agree with you guys. I don't want to penalize the businesses, you know, I want to encourage the growth here.
So is there any type of direction? I mean, Susan actually has a presentation coming up next about the square footage requirements and direction off of that too. So keep that in mind when we move forward. Maybe potentially we'll see less fire suppression systems going in, but as for the fees, is there any type of direction you guys would like to give me to where when I bring this back, I can have something that is complete to where it would fit what you guys are wanting? I know.
I think you're headed in the right direction.
Yes.
I think she's getting ready to cancel it, but I think I think the sprinkler systems are a good thing and we need to keep them. I like where they're required. I think that needs to stay left alone. I think if anybody's gonna be required to spend any money on a sprinkler system, it ought to be on pipe and sprinkler heads and putting it in. And beyond that, they shouldn't pay any more use fee than the actual water they're using, not that 4-inch pipe, but the 3/4-inch pipe that's going to their restrooms where they're actually using their water. That water is gonna sit in that sprinkler system for 30 years and never get used, more than likely. And if it does, it's gonna use, when that first sprinkler pops, it's gonna be about a 1/2-inch line and it's gonna run for about 10 minutes at the most. It's gonna get shut off, the fire's out, we're done. And I just think encouraging putting sprinkler systems in at that smaller size, I like it. I really want to leave that part alone, but I like the fact that these people should not pay for water they never use. So you can take that as direction, or you can throw rocks at me, I don't care, but
Well, I
that's what I think.
think I hear that loud and clear from two of you.
Yeah,
So,
from my understanding of it, I think you're headed in the right direction too, and I'd have to go over some of the rates here to get a better understanding, but I do want to see something done for them to reduce the cost.
Well, we're back to what's the consensus? What's
Can't-
the direction?
I can't give
I
him
think
the
he's
price.
heed in the right direction. I just, like I
think
said,
so,
I
too.
think we're about to cancel it, but
You like the $35 a month? Or the 40 a month that you're paying?
I don't know what that's based
I
on.
don't know what it's,
I think they ought to be paying a base on what they're actually using, not what size pipe goes to the building.
Right.
That's a
And they're using nothing. Like you said, for 30 years, it'll sit there.
I mean, I've been on the department for, what, 32 years? And I probably have not seen the equivalent of one of our 3,000-gallon tankers run out on the ground at the 3 fires that the sprinkler actually went off. One every decade. There's no justification for what we've been charging, not even almost.
All right, any other comments? I think
I haven't come up with a number idea on how much to charge, but 0. No less than what residents pay, that's for sure, for standby or just.
no less or no more?
No more.
No more than what they would pay for, okay.
Well, no, you know,
For the same size.
no,
Right.
no
For the
less.
same size outlet.
In that same area.
So if
but-
there was what you're saying is if they have a 4-inch line, if they have a 4-inch water meter, charge them the base, charge them the base rate of that? Or just you're
No.
saying the volume used? Because we don't meter the fire protection system.
No, I say what they're actually using day in and day out, that's going through their bathrooms, through their drinking
Okay.
fountains. Base it on that meter. That's the only one that's the only water you're selling those people.
Go ahead, John.
That's why I don't understand.
Well, if you look at water in general, there's always a base fee that has nothing to do with consumption. So I think conceptually, at least, the reason the fee looks the way it does is because there's a base administrative fee for the setup process itself, but it's not predicated on usage. This isn't tied to usage. Nor is some of the rates we do. There's a base fee that's just a base fee.
That's not true in that, I mean, I just priced getting water put to a lot I own, and my rate is based on the size of my meter.
Right, what I'm saying is there are fees that are associated with your meter that have nothing to do with consumption.
Why would you charge me more for a bigger meter if I'm not gonna use more water?
Because it would be the potential.
Because the possibility is that I
Potential.
might.
No,
Right.
what I'm saying is that in order to balance the water fund, which means revenue and expenditures, part of what's done in terms of the rate structure is that there's base fees and then there's usage fees. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but, and the base fee is just part of the overall cost of running the system. So it's not all predicated on usage.
Right, but it's based on the size of your meter.
It can be, yeah. I mean, the meter size is going to be adjusted if you're using a larger meter, but that's part of the rate structure that we use. But again, it's not predicated on consumption.
Again, the people that have the sprinkler system in, they're already paying a base fee on the water that they're actually running through the building, like Councilman McCoy talked about. They're not there for free. I mean, they're paying a base rate plus whatever water they use that's over and above that. And so it's not like they're really getting anything for nothing. I mean, they're still paying a base rate, they're paying for water consumption. This particular thing, they'll probably never use it. So I don't know what maintenance we're having to do. I don't know, Heater Resources, their justification was that it's to pay for upgrades, the water system, to compensate for it. I would like to know how many upgrades they actually did to the system to compensate for the sprinkler system. I mean, to me, like I said, it's something that was done because they could, not because there's a justifiable reason to do it. But that's, like I said, that's my opinion. When I die, I want you to know that'll be my opinion. Not saying it's right, but when I die, I'll still have that same opinion.
All right, any other comments? I think I believe I know where you guys want to go with it.
Even after this life.
Even after this life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan?
Well, they're paying the base on the building.
Vice Mayor and Council, there's been a lot of discussion about our amendment to our building codes that has a requirement of all commercial buildings that are 7,500 square feet or greater in size have to have some type of fire suppression system. This, I know, was discussed when I first got here in the summer of 2018, and I think there's probably been discussions prior to myself arriving here. I did some digging around to try to understand where this number came from and when it happened. And the most I could find actually was it was first adopted as an amendment to the 1973 Uniform Fire Code, which actually was adopted by the city in 1974. And it was a recommendation by the International Conference of Building Officials and the Western Fire Chiefs Association. The adopted amendment stated that automatic sprinkler systems shall be installed in any commercial building when the total floor area of a story exceeds 7,500 square feet. And a couple of reasons for this recommendation was a lack of sufficient fire flow and fire department response times in the western part of the country. So that's some history I dug up from 1974 when it actually, building codes, one year of the building code was adopted by the city, and there may be some other information that it predates this, but this is the most I could find. It dates back almost 50 years. Currently, our code, if you look on your memo and it talks about the background, so the latest adoption of the 2015 International Building Codes was done a few years ago, and there was an amendment to that to continue this requirement for automatic fire sprinkler systems to be installed for all new structures having a total floor area of 7,500 square feet or greater. That's commercial structures, that's not residential. It states that existing structures, when building additions or alterations, result in a gross floor area of 75 square feet or more. So if you did an addition and suddenly you went over that square footage, it would trigger the fire sprinkler requirement. The amendment also states that the provision shall not exempt those structures and occupancies for which the currently adopted edition of the International Building Code requires automatic fire sprinkler systems. So you could have a situation where you have a building that's less than 7,500 square feet, but the International Building Code says you have to put a fire sprinkler system with that type of use. And so in those cases, we would require it at the lower square footage. I'll give you a couple examples of that. So one of the things that's happened recently also is not that we have, structures that are above 7,500 square feet, but they've done a fire separation between the uses internally in the structure so that they do not have to do a fire sprinkler system. America's Mattress Showroom, which is next door to Man Mortgage, they're part of one building. The total square footage of the whole building is 7,200, so it's under the 7,500, which would have had that automatic sprinkler system requirement if it exceeded 7,500 square feet, so they kept the building smaller. That's one of the things we're seeing with this requirement, is that even though the building code may not require a fire sprinkler system, that people are building smaller buildings because they're trying to avoid the added fees of installing a fire sprinkler system. For the mattress showroom, the International Building Code requires that if that showroom, and it has to do with the flammables and the materials in furniture stores and mattress stores, the building code requires that 5,000 square feet, if you hit that 5,000 square feet trigger, you're required to put an automatic sprinkler system in. The display area for the mattress store is at 4,800 square feet. Again, the total building, including Man Mortgage, is at 7,200 square feet, but they kept the mattress showroom at 4,800 square feet to not trigger that 5,000 square foot that would trigger the automatic sprinkler requirement. And they have a 2-hour fire separation wall between those two uses. So basically, what triggers the fire sprinkler system is the type of construction, what the materials are that the building is made out of, and the type of use, what's happening inside the building. A couple examples of what's been done here in the past with that 7,500 square foot trigger. Boulevard Glass, the actual square footage of that building is 9,855 square feet. Therefore, it exceeds the 7,500 square foot and would require a fire sprinkler system. Boulevard Glass made some modifications and to our walls fire separation between different parts of the building, so it fell under, different parts of the building fell under that 7,500 square feet, so they didn't have to install a sprinkler system. So keep in mind, again, it's 9,855 square feet. If we use the building code requirements today in the 2015 International Building Code, that building could be up to 17,500 square feet in size before a sprinkler system would be required. But we have a requirement that's 7,500 square feet. So just keep that in mind, that again, we talk about what the building's being used for and what the building is constructed of, and then there's a square footage requirement. Another example is the Gila Valley Clinic. Its actual square footage is 13,250. And of course, it was over the 7,500 square foot, and so needed to do a fire sprinkler system. That building, if we go by the International Building Code requirements, could be up to 19,000 square feet before that fire sprinkler system would be triggered. Trying to look, let's see. Also, just another example, the new medical office building across from the hospital. They do require fire sprinklers. That building is 25,976, but the code requires that that building be fire sprinkled. So what we have is we have a building code. It's time tested. We have a requirement of 7,500 square feet where we're triggering, fire sprinkler systems regardless of use, regardless of type of construction. That's a cost to developers. It's also limiting the size of buildings that we have in town. And staff is, and also I would just want to go back to sufficient fire flow and fire department response times. We are now almost 50 years later than when this was first implemented. And certainly our fire flow in our community, I'm sure, has improved greatly. And our fire department response times has improved greatly over that time period. So staff is requesting that City Council consider, instead of having a 7,500 square foot trigger for commercial buildings, to just go with what the Uniform Building Code requires. Again, based on the type of use, what's happening inside the building, and the type of materials, how the building is being constructed. Councilman McGoy, you may want to add to that. I think the county requirement is 10,000 square feet. This is just a suggestion for council to consider. It certainly does impact economic development. It has a cost associated with it. Using the medical office building, a sprinkler system for a 25,000 square foot building costs $35,000. So there is a cost incurred by developers to meet this sprinkler system requirement. It varies depending on how big the building is. So this is something for council to consider. Do you want to, you could do a text amendment to completely remove the provision, the amendment that says 7,500 square feet, and we would just use the International Building Code requirements. So that's one of the options before you. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any comments? Got to me? I'd like to see the 7,500 disappear myself.
I'd like to hear from the fire chief on the situation.
Yeah, so would I.
And I'll tell you before he says anything, I'm gonna go along with him.
Morning, or good morning.
Morning.
Been a while. Good evening. I should be in bed. Good evening. My take on the 7,500, when Boulevard Glass was built, I took it, the code read 7,500 square feet. We require a sprinkler system. The building department has already been skating around this rule. If you put up this fire partition wall or whatever, I'm pretty sure our code says 7,500 square feet requires a sprinkler system. They allowed this building to be built at 8,500 square feet without a fire protection system. citing the fact that, oh, you put this wall in, you put this partition in, you put this in, and, you know, we dodge this limit. Yeah. So we're already dodging it. The way the fire code reads, as Susan has said, that it makes more sense. If you have a 10,000 square foot building and you're storing steel beams in it, and there's 3 people in there, you know, do you really need a fire sprinkler system for that building? Probably not. But if you take that building and it changed hands into ownership, and you make that building a nightclub, that building better have its fire sprinkler system in it. Because now you're endangering the public. Lots of people, lots of square footage. There's documented cases of it. One's the Station nightclub, happened in New Jersey. Fire sprinkler, as Morgan said, they save lives, property. I don't know the stats that he read off to you off the top of my head, but they do save lives and property. I technically have not been on too many fires. I think I've had 1 or 2 instances where a sprinkler system is activated in my 20 years. Gene, I don't know how many, would you say 2 or 3 that you've been on?
Yeah, probably 2 or 3.
No. But it does affect does save the property. Insurance rates are lower. But if we're going to have a code, let's enforce that code. I think the International Fire Code is well documented, well researched, well capable code to follow. It specifies buildings that are what they're used for, what's stored in them, their occupancy, what regards a building. I mean, you could have a 2,000 square foot building that requires a sprinkler system according to that code because of the use. I think that is a better system than the blanket 7,500, especially if we enforce it. Well, you can build a 10,500 square foot building if you put this little wall in or this door in, you know, so we can skate that if that's the mandatory. I think following the building code, the building code is probably the best avenue of attack. Comments, questions? Like to say anything? Vice Mayor?
You're suggesting keeping it at 75?
I'm suggesting that we follow the building code, the International Fire Code, in regards to, because it looks at things as what the building's going to be used for, how big is it, what's it made out of, which has obviously already been done because, you know, Boulevard Glass. Our code says 7,500 square feet, but they allowed them to build this building at 8,500 square feet without a sprinkler system because they put this wall or whatever they put in there. So let's go with the code that we're going to enforce and not have a blanket cap on it.
Not have that 7,500 just going, right?
To Chief Bingham's comment, you could have a building change use. And so if you had a building that was a warehouse and then now it's a nightclub as an example that he used, that change of use goes through the business license application process and then comes to the building department and we review those. So if we have a change of use in a building where now it's triggered to have the fire sprinkler system installed, then we would require that as part of that change of use. So that would address that concern about a building being used where you don't require a sprinkler system. Now somebody else has bought it or is renting it and is using it for a different type of use that would require a sprinkler system, and we can enforce that. So in order to move forward with this, if it's council's desire, it would be a text amendment to Title 15, which is our building codes. And we would eliminate that language in the building code, so it would just default to the International Building Code or the fire code for the sprinkler requirements. That process would require a public hearing, a notification in the newspaper, and then first and second reading of an ordinance to make the change in the amendment in the codes. And then 30 days after that second reading and the vote, then it would take effect. And staff would be happy to move forward with that if it's council's desire to do that.
I believe it is.
I want to just say one other thing, and I'm not arguing with the chief or arguing with anybody. I just want to throw it out there because I've seen it happen. If the building has a sprinkler system in it from design, it can be done for 1/3 of the price of putting one in after it becomes a nightclub. So if you're looking at it from a perspective of the economy of it, you're gonna kill a bunch of deals when you try to turn it around later anyway, so. It doesn't matter to me, but I think you're gonna kill just as many economic deals by switching occupancies in a building that was on the cusp one way or the other as you are in the first place. I think we should be giving people advantages to putting sprinkler systems in smaller buildings, which makes our life so much easier at corralling fire, and quit making it so expensive to do, make it easy to do, and continue requiring it. And that's just my opinion, and I'll shut up now.
So are you suggesting it'll be current 7,500?
I'm not suggesting any number. I'm suggesting that we quit making it so hard and we keep encouraging it instead of going anywhere. I mean, it in itself is a lifesaver. It's a water saver. It's a system saver. And like I said, this is going to kill all the advantage that Morgan brought to us 20 minutes ago in the system, but that's just my opinion. I said I'd shut up. This time I'm really going to do it. Don't ask me no questions.
I have to.
I guess I have a question. You know, we talked about the fire line and the fees associated with that, so let's say we were to adopt the fire code. How about those people that are now paying a monthly fee and they pay the upfront fees? The building I was referring to earlier would not have required a sprinkler system, yet they paid, $14,000 up front. There are other businesses that didn't pay up front, but they're paying a monthly fee. Can they discontinue their system and not pay those fees? I mean, and it's like, that's what I was trying to bring up earlier. We want to encourage sprinkler systems. In fact, I think at one time there was a push so that residential homes, if I'm not mistaken, would be sprinklered over, 2,400 square foot or something like that. I mean, I think we need to encourage it rather than discourage it. And the only thing we have control over is what that fee is that we charge. I mean, we have no control over what the sprinkler system costs, have no control over what the backflow system costs and the maintenance on that. The only thing we control is what we charge. And I think was my whole point, is we need to encourage people to put the system in. And like you said, there have been people building smaller buildings because they don't want to have to incur those costs. And part of those costs are ours that we pass on to. Anyway. Didn't really answer anybody's question.
No. So, Mr. McGoy said that he was going to listen to the chief, possibly agree with him, and I'm not sure he did, so.
Didn't listen or didn't he?
If we take,
listened.
I told you, if we take a vote right now, I'm gonna vote whatever he tells me to.
And that's what influences me too, is, two firemen up here and the chief, so. But yet I'm still not sure what you're suggesting to me.
The way I'm hearing it is do away with the 7,500.
And just follow the 2015.
And follow the code.
Follow the code. Is that what?
Is that what you guys want?
That's what the chief said, I believe.
I don't want to penalize businesses either,
I
but
don't
yet I
either.
hear
I don't
But
either.
I don't know
the
where.
idea about, you know.
Raised,
I like what
and
you
so we
said.
did the research, and that's why we're here, to try to make it less
Just pay for them to
onerous.
sit there to get hooked up, but not charge them.
I can sit back and say that, oh yeah, I just want this, want 7,500 to go away. You know, smaller buildings with fire protection systems are great. I agree with Councilman Seal in regards to the fact that, you know, we need to make people want to put them because they're cost effective. Not a habit.
And if I may add, the International Residential Code requires fire sprinklers for residences, and there was an amendment to that code that went from shall, saying you shall put a fire sprinkler system in, to may put a fire sprinkler system in. So it gave people the option. I think generally giving construction and construction costs, and everybody's looking to cost save and find whatever ways they possibly can to cost save. We can certainly, as a staff, encourage businesses to install fire sprinkler systems even when they're not required by the building codes. I really don't envision that happening very often because of the incurred extra cost for development. But we can certainly suggest it.
Well, if we make this change, and as you mentioned earlier, it's gonna take some to do that. There's some things that have to happen. Or what impact does that have on the building, the hospital's building?
That already, the new building that the hospital's building, it already triggered the requirement according to the building code to have a fire sprinkler system. So that's what they're doing, and they're already installed that. I don't know if they've installed it in the entire building or partially, but that by that use and the type of construction of that building, it was already required, even though, and it's 25,000 square feet, almost 26,000 square feet. So that's going by the building code requirements. And certainly we would have required it anyway with this, because it's over 7,500 square feet.
Well, I'm listening to Mr. McGoy, Mr. Seal, and the chief. So, that's where I'm at.
So what would council's recommendation be?
That's how mixed up I am.
I mean, the option is to leave it in place. The option is to change the square footage, maybe increase the square footage, or the option is to rely on the building codes and the building code recommendations for when sprinkler systems are needed in a building, or required in a building.
Follow the code and enforce it.
That's kind of what I'm getting, and also the fees doesn't sound like we're in favor of any fee is what I'm getting. That there's a zero fee and then follow the building code. And I think when you think about what's being said, the building code is taking into account both the size of the building and the use, which seems to be a pretty logical approach. And again, that will open up opportunities for people to develop these buildings without the sprinklers, potentially. So you have more options for people at lower cost and lower barriers to entry. So if you have no fee and then you use the building code, it seems like that gets you where you want to be. I believe that's in keeping with what the fire chief is saying. And we're in pretty good company following the building code at that point. So that's what I'm getting.
I think that answers the question. It brings them all together, I think so.
Follow the code and enforce it.
Okay.
And I will bring this back as a text amendment, and you will certainly have another opportunity to discuss it and to actually take a vote on the change.
And then what you're gonna be bringing back does have a square footage trigger somewhere, right?
That language, the amendment to the building codes will be removed completely. That's
Right.
where it has the 7,500 square footage.
Right.
And because we adopted the International Building Code, that's what we will use to determine whether or not a fire sprinkler system needs to be installed in a building based on the type of construction and the actual use of the building. And also, we would use the building code, if there was a change of use, we would go back to the building code and see if this new use and the type of construction would trigger the installation of a new fire sprinkler system after the fact.
Okay.
I know I said I'd shut up, but I've lied about other things too.
Good. Let me hear it.
I brought this to Gail Hedges years ago and told him I thought that the fee should be waived if somebody would put in a sprinkler system. And he literally laughed out loud at me. But that's what made sense to me, was no fee if you put in a sprinkler system and a fee if you don't. It's almost the opposite of what we're doing, but because I just see how much water we put all over the place to fight somebody's swing set fire, and it takes no water to put out a fire in a sprinklered system. I'm still gonna go along with whatever you say, though.
I'm glad we're addressing it because I only brought it up 11 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that we're finally taking the time to talk about it.
Okay, well then, if that answers everything then, right?
Okay,
Gives
that's
us
fine.
direction. Then I think that concludes it. All we need is a motion to,
Make the motion, we adjourn?
a motion, second?
I ain't saying no
Hmm?
more. I ain't saying no more.
What did you say? Second?
Second.
We got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.